Katie Couric and director Stephanie Sochtig are under fire for their anti-gun propaganda film, Under the Gun. The pair stand accused of deceptively editing interviews with at least one subject, the Virginia Citizens Defense League. In the final product, Couric asks the group a question on background checks, and the camera cuts to their reaction. 9 seconds of silence and confused looks. Watch.
Let me ask you another question. If there are no background checks for gun purchasers, how do you prevent felons or terrorists from purchasing a gun?
Unfortunately for Couric, the group is savvy, and they anticipated the unprofessional behavior and recorded their entire interview. In the audio, Couric asks her question, and the group promptly responds with polite, concise answers, none of which made it into the film. Listen to the difference for yourself.
If there are no background checks for gun purchasers, how do you prevent felons or terrorists from walking into, say, a licensed gun dealer and purchasing a gun?
Well, one, if you're not in jail, you should still have your basic rights.
This intentionally misleading edit was a deceptive tactic used by Couric and Sochtig to manipulate the viewer into thinking badly of the pro-Second Amendment group. The Washington Post panned the edit, and Sochtig was forced into offering this non-apology, quote, "My intention was to provide a pause for the viewer to have a moment to consider this important question before presenting the facts on Americans' opinions on background checks." Sochtig also told Howard Kurtz, quote, "I never intended to make anyone look bad, and I apologize if anyone felt that way." As a director, she didn't realize that editing out a thoughtful, thorough answer to Couric's question on background checks by replacing it with awkward silence from her interviewees would make them look bad? Don't expect a real apology from Couric either. She released a statement of her own, quote, "I support Stephanie's statement and am very proud of the film." Sochtig also conducted a 4-hour interview with researcher John Lott, none of which was used for the film, likely because Lott countered their questions too well. I spoke with Philip Van Cleve of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, and he was also interviewed for 2 additional hours without other members of the group, all of which also ended up on the cutting room floor. Van Cleve said that the silence shown in lieu of the group's answers was actually when the production crew asked for silence so they could get the ambient noise for post-production purposes. Epix, the new network already rocked now by accusations of deception, released their own statement. Quote, "Under the Gun is a critically acclaimed documentary that looks at the polarizing and politicized issue of gun violence, a subject that elicits strong reactions from people on both sides. Epix stands behind Katie Couric, director Stephanie Sochtig, and their creative and editorial judgment. We encourage people to watch the film and decide for themselves." Yeah, give them your views so they can sell advertising first. Couric promoted the anti-gun film on The Daily Show, repeating talking points from the gun control lobby, such as,
74% of NRA members favor universal background checks.
Seen as NRA membership isn't public, it is truly a feat of movie magic for that to have actually been credibly surveyed. The number actually comes from a push poll ordered by Michael Bloomberg, which asked vague questions about criminals and guns and gave those polled 0 information on current gun laws. The NRA did its own survey of real NRA members, which yielded opposite results. Couric also parroted that long disproven gun control talking point that 40% of gun purchases are done without a background check. This was exactly what Sochtig told The Guardian in an earlier interview. She said, quote, "The first thing I learned that you've got to be kidding me is that 40% of guns in this country are bought without a background check." Sochtig went on to say that the NRA is duping its members, but really, it's Sochtig who is duping viewers. That 40% number she's reciting as gospel is from a pre-Brady law survey of barely 250 gun owners who were asked how they obtained their firearm. hardly accurate in 2016 or representative of the millions of gun owners in America. Parroting lines from Bloomberg's gun control groups may not be the only collusion between the Under the Gun director and Bloomberg. Bloomberg also financed Soschtig's previous film. An excerpt from the New York Times, quote, "Fed up from Atlas Films, a production company started in 2008 so a friend, Stephanie Soschtig, could make documentaries. Along with Ms. Couric and his wife, it was produced by the environmental activist Laurie David. Ms. David's former husband, Larry David, helped with the financing, as did the New York Giants quarterback Eli Manning and the former New York mayor, Michael R. Bloomberg, who was interviewed in the film along with Bill Clinton." It's only natural to ask whether or not Bloomberg funded Soschtig's anti-gun documentary, too. Bottom line, this isn't a documentary. It's an anti-gun propaganda film presented as one. When you resort to purposefully omitting intelligent points and fabricating percentages to support your crumbling anti-gun narrative, you're losing, and losing big.